A few years ago, our story begins somewhere in Tokyo, starting with a very stoic dog statue. Then, for reasons still unknown, a gate to another world just rips open, unleashing total chaos and a lot of weird-looking party animals. Instead of an all-out war, Japan just starts diplomatic relations with the other world, which is certainly a choice. Soon enough, Isekai immigrants who are super into Japan start showing up and moving in, like right next door. Which brings us to today and our main character just trying to enjoy a quiet drink at home. His peace is immediately shattered by someone at the door yelling, "Excuse me," with way too much energy. It is his new neighbor, a demon girl named Alma, who is just absolutely thrilled to introduce herself. She then introduces herself as a member of the Dwarf clan, and our boy is understandably confused. She is not exactly short and stout. He just stares down at this dwarf, who's brought a whole barrel as a housewarming gift apparently. Our guy's first brilliant question is to ask what grade of elementary school she is in, which goes over about as well as you'd expect. This whole situation reminds him of his friend who recently announced he was marrying an elf, much to his shock. His buddy is super smug about it, calling it the trendy new otherworld marriage and showing off his elf wife on his phone. Back in the present, his friend points out how common these neighbors are now, reminiscing about when they were just normal neighbors. This friend then laments that he thought they'd be single bros for life, a truly touching sentiment. He keeps going on about their long friendship, completely missing the dagger eyes our guy is giving him. His friend's final advice is that he will find a nice neighbor too, which to be fair, our boy was kinda hoping for. And then he remembers the nice neighbor he actually got, who is currently vibrating with excitement at his door. She gets right up in his face, insisting they should be the best of friends, personal space be damned. Alma tries to pull off a cute little head tilt, but he is just staring back with the most dead inside expression imaginable. His only thought is that she is incredibly annoying and also absolutely reeks of whatever was in that barrel. Alma immediately grills him about his terrible sleep schedule, and he just admits he works until the last train every night. Out of nowhere, she reaches into her top with a determined, "All right," a classic time-honored anime technique. She then whips out a ring, offering it as a token of our new friendship, which is a totally normal neighborly gift. Our boy is justifiably confused, mostly about where she was even storing a ring in the first place. Alma proudly explains it is a buff accessory she crafted to reduce fatigue, complete with a status-up effect. He examines the very fantasy-looking item, still trying to process that this tiny gremlin actually made it herself. While he is trying to politely kick her out, she is going on about how dwarves are master crafters and not to worry about curses. And if the ring fails, her backup plan is just to give him a can of hard seltzer. Problem solved. After all that chaos, she finally asks his name and he introduces himself as Sausuk. As she leaves, she casually drops that she is over 100 years old, leaving him absolutely floored. She gives him one last cheerful "nice to meet you, Sausuk-kun," before heading off with her giant barrel of booze. Sausuk just stands there, drink in hand, trying to compute the whirlwind of insanity that just happened at his door. His only follow-up question as she walks away is to ask how much that massive barrel even weighs. This next day, it is back to the soul-crushing reality of the big city office life. At his desk, Sausuk realizes the ring actually works. He is not physically exhausted at all after a long day. Unfortunately, the ring does absolutely nothing for the deep spiritual pain of unpaid overtime, which is hitting him hard. He suddenly remembers Alma's other gift, the emergency booze for when the suffering becomes too much. Dragging himself home from work, he looks like a man who desperately needs that emergency booze right now. But waiting for him in the hallway is another neighbor, an elf just casually drinking wine on his doorstep. She looks up completely wasted and slurs a cheerful "welcome home, Sausuk-kun," because his life was not weird enough. Sausuk just asks what she is even doing, and she warns him it is a long story, a very drunk long story. This long story is that she went for a booze run an hour ago and immediately lost her apartment key. She finishes her tale with a dazzling, completely wasted smile, asking if that was really so long. He cannot believe she has been sitting out here for an hour, learning she does not even have a phone to call the landlord. Her backup plan apparently is to just casually sleep outside sometimes, which is a totally normal solution. With a sigh of pure exhaustion, Sausuk takes off his jacket because what else can you even do here? He drapes it over her shoulders while pointing out it is cold, leaving her completely speechless. Pulling it close, she blushes and says it is warm, clearly flustered by the sudden kindness. Sausuk offers to call the landlord, brushing it off as just returning a favor from yesterday. But he is clearly flustered himself, refusing to actually make eye contact while playing the hero. She immediately takes this opening to ask if they can get to know each other a lot better, wink wink. Our boy's brain completely short-circuits, unable to process this very direct, very drunken advance. So now they are in his apartment and she is kicking off a commemorative drinking party to celebrate, getting locked out. She is shocked he actually invited her in, but he mutters that it was more like she forced her way in. He then thanks her for something she gave him that morning, admitting it was a huge help and she is glad to hear it. Her kindness reminds him of Alma's gift, prompting a flashback to a master dwarf talking about the pride of craftsmanship. Sausuk reflects on how dwarves pour their entire souls into their craft. It is the very essence of their race. He takes a huge swig of his drink, a tiny emotional dwarf perched on his shoulder, weeping with pride. Our guy is genuinely touched, thinking about how amazing it is to have that kind of passion for your life's work. This prompts some heavy self-reflection on his own life, drifting through college and into a job, now 32 with no real purpose. He is spiraling, asking himself what the hell he is even working for, a classic late-night existential crisis. While the elf chugs her bottle, Saosuk immediately tries to walk it back, blaming the booze for his sudden vulnerability. He begs her to just forget he said anything, looking absolutely mortified by his own emotional outburst. But she just gives him this knowing little smile, leaning in and asking him to continue. She is not letting this go. Saosuk is absolutely sweating bullets, completely trapped by this very direct, very pretty neighbor. He stammers, trying to explain himself, but the words just are not coming out right. Finally, he admits that seeing people with dreams makes him anxious because he has nothing he wants to do. This guy keeps venting about how everyone's getting married, leaving him feeling even more out of place in the world. She just blushes, flustered by his sudden, raw honesty and telling him she is not a kid. And then, in a surprisingly gentle move, she just reaches out and starts patting his head. Our boy is so stunned he accidentally calls her Alma-san. Wrong neighbor, dude, wrong neighbor. She leans in closer, telling him that from her perspective, he is still just a child. With her hand on his shoulder, she tells him there is no need to hold back or worry so much. Saosuk is blushing like crazy, realizing it has been ages since anyone's shown him this kind of comfort. He is just completely overwhelmed by the simple gesture, unable to even look at her. Then she smiles and casually mentions she is also over 100, because she is a dwarf too. Wait, what? As she is leaving, she thanks him for everything and tells him not to lose his key again, like this was all totally normal. He just tells her it was no trouble, his brain clearly still rebooting from that last info dump. Still flustered, Saosuk tries to get another word in before she is gone for good. And he actually asks if they can drink together again sometime. Our boy is shooting his shot. Her face lights up, completely flustered but absolutely beaming at his invitation. Still blushing like crazy, she gives him an enthusiastic yes to another drinking date. Alone in his apartment again, Saosuk just stares at the closed door, his brain still buffering. This post-social interaction cringe hits hard as he calls himself pathetic for getting worked up at 32. His brain then helpfully reminds him she is over 100, which probably means she is very experienced. And on her side of the door, she is also having a full-on meltdown, blushing furiously. Her internal monologue is just pure panic. She cannot believe she just went and patted a guy's head for the first time. This reason for her forwardness. She's been friendless for 100 years and her only social lubricant is actual lubricant booze. Leaning against her own door, she is just thinking about what a genuinely nice guy Saosuk is. So with both of them having a complete emotional crisis in their separate apartments, the night comes to a close. Come morning, our boy's eyes pop open with a jolt of energy. Sitting up, he realizes something is different. He is not a walking corpse for once. He has actually got energy to move on his day off, a feeling so foreign he almost does not recognize it. This is all thanks to Alma's ring. Normally he is too tired to do anything, let alone after a night of drinking. Just as he resolves to go thank her properly, a faint cracking sound echoes in the room. Looking down, he sees the source of the noise. The magic fatigue-reducing ring has just split in two. And there it is, the crushing realization that he broke a priceless magical item in less than 24 hours. A memory of Alma's passionate speech about dwarves pouring their entire being into their craft comes flooding back. This immediately leads to a new, terrifying thought. Is she going to kill him for this? Meanwhile, completely unaware of his panic, Alma is happily humming her way to his door with a bag of groceries. Alma is waiting for him, looking uncharacteristically flustered and holding a bag of groceries. Saosuk runs right into her on his way to take out the trash, and she gives him a cheerful morning greeting. He tries to start his apology, but she immediately panics, thinking he is about to confess his love to her. Instead, our boy bows deeply, presenting the shattered remains of the ring and begging for forgiveness. To his utter disbelief, she just laughs it off, calling the priceless magical artifact a consumable item. She does admit it is weird though, since the ring was supposed to last at least a week. Her first theory is that he spent all day doing some insane workout, which he quickly denies it was just work. Alma's solution, naturally, is to just ask the ring itself what happened, leaving Saosuk totally lost. And she is not kidding, holding the broken pieces to her ear like she is getting a hot tip. This ring immediately snitches on his soul-crushing work schedule, overtime until the last train with a 10-minute lunch. She is absolutely horrified, yelling that of course it would break under that kind of pressure. He nervously asks if the ring is cursed now because this whole situation is just escalating. She explains that dwarves can hear the voice of objects they create, a very useful and not at all invasive talent. This is actually a first for her. In 100 years, nothing she has made has ever broken in a single day. While she is having a crafter's existential crisis, Saosuk just remembers he still needs to take out the trash. Snapping out of it, Alma asks him if he is free later tonight since it is his day off. With a confident smile, she invites him over to her place so she can make him a new one right away. He steps into her apartment and is immediately greeted by a full-blown blacksmith's workshop, forge, barrels, the works. As he is trying to process the illegal forge in a rental, she is already chugging wine, insisting she cannot work without it. Getting right down to it, she demands his finger so she can take his measurements for replacement. As she takes his hand to measure it, the vibe gets surprisingly intimate. Saosuk notes her calloused hands are a crafter's, asking why she is not using any actual tools. With a smug smile, she says she is used to it, pressing his hand against her chest for a very precise measurement. We get a quick flashback of her hauling materials, showing she is no stranger to hard work. Then it is right to the forge, hammering away with the focus of a true master. Back in the present, Saosuke is just a blushing, sweaty mess, completely overwhelmed by the proximity. In what feels like seconds, she is already done, presenting the finished ring with a triumphant tada. He immediately tries to pay her for it, but she just waves him off, saying she does not want his money. A mischievous glint appears in her eye as she comes up with an alternative form of payment. She then points right at him and asks if he will be her partner instead, a totally not loaded question. Our boy's brain just gives up, stuttering in pure unadulterated confusion. Alma instantly realizes her choice of words might have been a catastrophic miscalculation. Panicking, she clarifies she meant a business partner because her social skills are apparently powered by booze and prayer. Her logic is that since her gear broke on him in a day, he is the ultimate product tester. Being a crafter, she explains, means she wants to create things that actually meet people's needs. She gets all flustered, admitting she needs regular feedback from a modern-day wage slave like him. Saosuke is struck by this, realizing that under her chaotic exterior, she is incredibly passionate about her work, but almost starts losing her nerve, thinking she's being way too demanding all of a sudden. Stepping up, Saosuke extends his hand, formally accepting her offer to be her partner. Her face just explodes with pure shock and joy. She absolutely cannot believe he actually said yes. Alma is absolutely losing her mind with joy, admitting she was totally sure he was going to turn her down. But then she gets dead serious, telling him his job is so exploitative he should probably just quit immediately. With a wink, she lays out her business plan. If her gear can satisfy him, it can satisfy anyone. So she leans in and asks if they should get started on this partnership right away. And by get started, she means kicking off another commemorative drinking party, because of course she does. Saosuke immediately suspects this was just an excuse to drink, but she tells him to lighten up. She insists that as partners, it is their duty to get to know each other better, starting with proper introductions. So she reintroduces herself as Alma the Dwarf, whose hobbies are crafting and, you guessed it, drinking. Saosuke introduces himself as a regular office worker, but when it comes to hobbies, he just kinda stalls out. He admits he works out, but has this weird hang-up about not having any real hobbies to speak of. Remembering he still has her jacket, he mentions he has been training hard, a fact that does not go unnoticed. Alma's eyes immediately light up with a crafter's curiosity, asking if she can touch his muscles. Our boy's brain just completely blue screens, utterly unprepared for this very hands-on line of questioning. He somehow manages to stammer out a yes, and she celebrates like she just won the lottery. Saosuke is now spiraling, trying to figure out if this is friendly skinship or just a professional muscle inspection. Her hand lands on his arm and she starts giving his bicep a very thorough, very focused examination. This examination quickly escalates to her feeling up his chest, clearly impressed by the results of his training. He nervously asks if it tickles, trying to play it cool while she is basically climbing him like a tree. And then it hits her, the sudden, dawning horror of what this situation must look like. Her face is pure panic as she realizes she's just been groping her brand new business partner. Smooth. She shoves him away, frantically explaining this is all for R&D. She needs his body information for future items. Blushing furiously, she wonders if he is just naturally clueless or if she is just that drunk, a question for the ages. Saosuke, bless his heart, just asks if she wants to continue and she immediately says of course. Alma tries to play it off like this is just her professional nature, claiming she is used to this kind of thing. But the sweat and the intense focus tell a completely different story. This is anything but professional. Her hands move to his back as she marvels at how broad it is, continuing her very thorough product testing. This internal monologue is just her trying to convince herself this is all for work, that he is helping her out. With a soft touch, her hand finally slides away, giving him a brief, blessed moment of respite. This girl's mind is just spinning, comparing his human build to a dwarf's and getting completely overwhelmed by the difference. Her solution to this emotional overload: chugging wine straight from the bottle because that always helps. With her courage restored, she declares that her rationality is back and this is actually a great idea. She pulls him onto the couch, asking him to get into a better position because something feels off about their current setup. Leaning in close, she reminds him he did not let her touch him before and she is not missing her chance now. Saosuke is just a blushing, stammering mess, completely unprepared for this level of forwardness. She climbs right on top of him, calling his name while he is just frozen in place. Personal space has left the chat. Placing a hand on his chest, she says this is just a continuation of her self-introduction, which is one way to put it. Then she gets real, admitting that without alcohol she gets depressed because crafting is the only thing she is good at. We see a flashback to her feeling lonely and down after moving in right before Saosuke came to her rescue. That is why she explains she wants to repay his kindness by making him the best gear she possibly can. Saosuke listens intently, agreeing that is important, but adding that getting her creations to people is just as vital. As he downs another drink, Alma compliments his form, clearly enjoying her prime vantage point on his lap. This hits Saosuke hard. She is so passionate about her work while he is just a corporate drone. Sensing his mood shift, she offers to listen to his problems, playing the role of the wise older sister. Our boy is internally screaming no, absolutely refusing to burden this kind, drunk dwarf with his issues. But she just leans in closer with a soft hum, completely disarming his internal panic with one look. This topic somehow warps to marriage, with Saosuk yelling that it is a huge commitment, not just buying a bag. Alma wholeheartedly agrees, calling it an incredibly heavy contract and marveling at anyone who can do it. After another round of synchronized drinking, they both agree that yeah, they are definitely on the same wavelength. This leads to the only logical conclusion. They both drunkenly yell, "Let us just get married," and die laughing. And then a full hour of this absolute chaos passes. We cut to a hand passed out on the table, surrounded by the graveyard of empty cans and bottles. Saosuk is completely out of it, mumbling that something feels difficult and painful. This feeling intensifies, his face a total mess of blush and drunken discomfort. Looking up, he finds Alma back on top of him, calling his name with a worried look on her face. All he can do is stammer her name, completely pinned down as her hands rest on his chest. Still trapped, he just keeps repeating her name, totally lost in an alcoholic haze. Leaning in close, she says his name, her expression unreadable as she starts to confess something. He is completely zoned out as her words trail off, something about Saosuk's thing. That last part hits him like a lightning bolt, his eyes flying open in pure, unadulterated shock. Wide awake and sweating, his brain tries to reboot with a single, desperate question. Was that a dream? He wakes up to find Alma right there in bed with him, and the awkwardness is absolutely palpable. Her brain finally catches up to reality, her face a perfect picture of "what did I do last night?" Saosuk is having the exact same meltdown, realizing with dawning horror that nope, this was not a dream. Trying to piece it together, he asks if she recalls anything about their very hands-on business meeting. In a moment of beautiful shared amnesia, they both admit they remember absolutely nothing, a clean slate. Alma immediately seizes this opportunity, declaring that if no one remembers, then it never happened, right, Saosuk? Our boy makes the only logical move, screaming, "I am going home," and making a very strategic exit. From his own balcony, he gives a frantic wave, putting a safe and respectable distance between them. Alone in his apartment, the full weight of the situation crashes down on him and the cringe is real. His mind flashes back to a conversation he had earlier, which is probably not helping his anxiety. Turns out he was getting grilled by a coworker about his new elf wife neighbor. This guy was going on about how Isekai wives are a huge trend online, treating Alma like a collectible. Back in the present, Saosuk just collapses onto his bed, completely drained by the social whiplash. Covering his face, he kicks off his 10th self-reflection meeting of the day. The man is spiraling. This thought of bringing it up again is mortifying, but he knows he cannot just leave things this awkward. Steeling himself, he decides he has to go over and apologize properly, no matter how weird it gets. In a moment of pure sitcom timing, they both open their doors at the exact same instant. Saosuk just freezes, completely caught off guard by the sudden encounter. Alma looks just as surprised, and she is sporting a new pair of glasses, looking surprisingly studious. All he can manage is to stammer out her name, because what else do you even say at this point? Alma is just standing there, wallet in hand, looking like a deer caught in the headlights of social interaction. Her eyes meet Saosuk's, and the shared oh no energy is absolutely deafening, so she does the only mature adult thing she can think of and slams the door right in his face. From inside, she is yelling, "Wait, wait, wait," while Saosuk is left to process this masterclass in communication. She begs him for just a minute, admitting she is not in the right headspace for this and it is just too weird. A single agonizing minute later, this door creaks open to reveal Alma holding an empty wine bottle, announcing a critical lack of liquid courage. Saosuk puts two and two together, asking if this means she is sober, and she confirms his worst fears. Being sober around another adult is just too creepy for her, she says, a woman of the people truly. She then lets out a sudden shriek of pure social anxiety, making our boy practically jump out of his skin. After apologizing for the noise, she explains she was just about to head out on a very urgent booze run. Then, mustering all her strength, she timidly asks if he'd like to join her for a drink right now. Her eyes are squeezed shut so tight, you can feel the sheer force of her hoping he says yes. And when he agrees, her face just erupts in a fountain of tearful, overwhelming joy. It is a miracle. Next thing you know, they are at a pub where she is celebrating her first drink like it is the water of life itself. She immediately launches into a lecture on how you cannot get anything done without alcohol, but you also cannot drink too much, just enough to pass out. Saosuk tries to bring up the whole "what happened this morning" thing, but she quickly cuts him off. Instead, she pulls out a brand new ring, completely derailing his attempt at a serious conversation. She proudly explains she made it for him right after he left and tells him to go ahead and try it on. He slips the new, more intricate ring onto his finger, and it is a perfect fit. This moment he puts it on, Saosuk feels a sudden jolt, his eyes widening in surprise. He is absolutely floored, shouting about how his entire body suddenly feels impossibly light. Alma explains that to craft a magic item, you need a very specific, concrete image to work from. Apparently, after their little research session earlier, she got all the inspiration she needed. With a proud grin, she declares that she was only able to make this masterpiece because of him. Our boy is just trying to compute this, muttering, "because of me," as the gears slowly turn. He worries it'll break in a day, but she confidently guarantees this one will last at least half a year, a major upgrade. Changing the subject, she shyly asks if they can just forget what happened this morning and be friends. She tries to play it cool, saying that when you have lived for decades, these things are no big deal. Saosuk just blushes and agrees, admitting he cannot possibly compete with her vast life experience. And then she completely self-destructs, screaming that this was actually her first time ever, so much for being worldly. Desperate to escape the awkwardness, Saosuk takes a drink and asks if the new ring has a name. This question hangs in the air, a brief moment of normalcy in their otherwise chaotic partnership. Her first pitch is super hyper ultimate fatigue recovery, which he immediately roasts for sounding like a kid's idea. Thinking for a second, he just mashes their names together and suggests calling it the Almaring. Her eyes light up like a Christmas tree as she instantly declares his brilliant name officially hired. With a triumphant roar, she christens her creation the Almaring, much to Saosuk's flustered surprise. This new milestone obviously calls for more drinking, and Saosuk points out she is basically always drunk anyway. But then a thought seems to strike him, his expression turning a little more serious. He suddenly recalls that weird conversation from work asking Alma if she has ever heard of the Isekai wife trend. She grabs her head, admitting that without a drink in hand, she is just a walking ball of anxiety. Saosuk is genuinely shocked she has insecurities, and she just drunkenly slurs that of course she does. It all stems from being born a dwarf, which apparently comes with its own set of pressures. In a flashback, she explains dwarves are strong but not smart, so crafting is the only thing they are good at. Taking that away from her would leave nothing, she says. Her entire identity is tied to her work. This leaves her feeling like she is constantly walking a tightrope, just riddled with self-doubt. With a self-deprecating laugh, she just calls herself lame for being this way. But Saosuk immediately shuts that down, telling her that is not true at all. He says he could never think someone so passionate about their work is uncool in any way. Looking her dead in the eye, he says her name with a surprising amount of sincerity. Alma is completely caught off guard, blushing and asking if he is trying to sweet-talk her now. Our boy immediately short-circuits, sweating and stammering that is not what he meant at all. He hides his face, begging her to forget he said anything because it was just a joke, a terrible, terrible joke. But she just smiles, thanks him for being a good guy, and slides another drink his way. Saosuk is just a blushing mess, completely unprepared for a genuine compliment after that disaster. He mutters that he is terrible with words and just ended up making her worry about him instead. Changing the subject, Alma gets up to go to the restroom, leaving him to his flustered thoughts. She heads off toward the ladies' room, giving him a moment to cool down. This door clicks shut, leaving Saosuk alone at the table for a minute. But inside, Alma is pressed against the door, having a full-blown emotional meltdown of her own. He got to her. Inside the restroom stall, Alma's heart is absolutely pounding as she tries to process his sincere compliment. She is completely flustered, wondering what Saosuk would even do if she made a move on him right now. Sometime later, they are waved out of the pub by a very cheerful catgirl waitress. On the walk home, Saosuk admits he had a lot of fun, with Alma trailing quietly beside him. But as they approach their building, a sharp voice cuts through the night, announcing they have been waiting. Alma's face immediately contorts into a mask of pure, unadulterated, "Oh no, I am busted" horror. Standing there is a very unimpressed woman who introduces herself as the landlady, scolding Alma for her reaction. Turns out our favorite dwarven artisan is way behind on her rent, a fact Saosuk is just now learning. This landlady lays down the law. She let Alma stay because of her talent, but if the rent is not paid, she is out. We then cut to Saosuk's office building, where the mood is just as dire. The whole department is in trouble. He is being told by a superior to get to the office early tomorrow, no questions asked. This entire office is a symphony of quiet desperation, with every single employee looking completely burned out. A coworker sidles up to him, asking if someone named Fudo has shown up yet. This person he is talking to is his section chief, a woman named Mizushima Ryo. Her first contribution to the conversation is to ask him if he is a complete moron. What a great boss. This triggers a lovely little flashback to another manager verbally abusing an employee for not thinking. Back in the present, Saosuk just looks completely drained by this relentlessly toxic environment. He and Mizushima then share a moment of gallows humor, sarcastically agreeing that things are operating normally today. Then she gets a call and learns 4 employees were just hospitalized from poor health, and the chaos erupts. Another manager cheerfully points out this just means the rest of them have to pick up the slack for 4 people, problem solved. His boss, Mizushima, just announces she will cover the work for 2 people, because why not add to the burnout, right? Saosuk immediately protests, telling Mizushima that is completely impossible, but she is not having any of it. Waving off his concern, she insists it is fine and actually more efficient if she just handles it all herself. With that settled in her mind, she just orders him to get back to his own desk and get to work. A new coworker pops up a bit later, checking on Saosuk after he got chewed out by their boss. She just laughs it off with a strained smile, insisting it is okay because she is just useless anyway, a healthy work environment clearly. His face is a perfect mask of despair as the thought of changing jobs just echoes in his mind. That night he is venting to Alma over drinks, lamenting his terrible salary and his life as a corporate slave. Alma just listens on, a bit shyly, as he continues to vent about his dead-end job. This guy feels trapped, saying he cannot just quit and leave behind the coworkers he actually cares about. With a cute little fang smile, she tells him that his loyalty is not shameful at all. In fact, she really likes it. Next thing he knows, she is tackling him in a hug, gleefully shouting about how much she loves that side of him. It is a core dwarven value, apparently. They never abandon their own, always crafting the best gear to keep them safe. This next day at work, he is fired up, feeling like the Almaring is giving him the power to push through this hellscape. Feeling bold, he walks right up to Mizushima and asks her to delegate some of her overwhelming workload to him. But she just dismisses him out of hand, reminding him they already had this conversation this morning. Mizushima tells him to stick to his own assignments, bragging that an all-nighter is nothing before declaring she is already finished. Her confident smirk immediately vanishes, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. Turns out our boy is standing there telling her to check his work because he has already finished everything she assigned him. As she checks his work, she is absolutely losing it, screaming that she gave him a full day's worth of tasks. How is he done already? Mizushima's brain just short-circuits, demanding to know how he pulled off this impossible feat. He explains he is not even tired, feeling like he literally compressed time with his newfound hyperfocus. With a manic grin, he holds up the Almaring, declaring it the ultimate item that will save them all from corporate hell. And at that exact moment, a loud asterisk crack echoes as the ring splits right down the middle. This is immediately followed by the ghostly laughter of Alma's half-a-year guarantee, a promise that aged like milk. Saosuk's face just screams, "Oh, so we are doing this again, are we?" The disappointment is palpable. Back home, Alma is completely baffled by his story of time compression, holding a self-help book like it is a foreign artifact. He confirms she is the one who made the busted ring, and she sheepishly admits that yeah, it was her. But she explains that even dwarves have no idea what their creations will actually do. It is a total crapshoot. Crafting is basically a gacha game, she says, where the results depend on her mood, making it a total mystery box. If there was a set formula, everyone would just copy it, which is why every dwarven item is one of a kind. Saosuk decides to investigate the cause, telling her he is borrowing her for the night since this is all her fault anyway. Left alone in her workshop, Alma gets back to work, looking a little flustered by his sudden departure. She examines the ring and realizes the buff stats are way stronger than what she originally crafted. In fact, the power is still fluctuating, almost as if the ring is alive and kicking. Looking at the cracked band, she wonders out loud if the ring is actually growing. This next morning, we see their apartment building, the start of another perfectly normal, not at all chaotic day. A new face appears, a serious-looking elf girl who seems to be one of their neighbors. She is just sweeping the grounds outside, a picture of calm in their otherwise hectic lives. But then she realizes with a jolt that she has absolutely no memory of what happened the day before yesterday. This elf neighbor, Helena, is getting an earful from a moth person who is cheerfully explaining they are now friends after a blackout-drunk adventure. Despite the absolute nonsense of it all, Helena admits to herself that she does not actually feel uncomfortable about this new arrangement. A bit later, she is waving up to Saosuk as he leaves his apartment, politely wishing him a good day. Our boy is already dreading the office, clutching his hand and realizing he is completely dependent on the Almaring to function now. He spirals for a second, wondering if it is really okay to be this reliant on Alma just to get through the day. Right on cue, Alma herself pops up in his apartment, asking what is wrong and snapping him out of his thoughts. We then cut to Saosuk and Helena greeting each other outside, with her giving a very formal and polite bow. He asks if she is feeling better, and she just blames herself for not understanding her own limits, a classic post-party excuse. In his haste to check on her, Saosuk immediately trips over his own feet, sending his briefcase flying into the air. Helena's calm demeanor shatters, her eyes widening in shock as she watches him go down in a heap. As he tumbles backward in slow motion, she instinctively reaches out a hand to try and stop his fall. But instead of hitting the pavement, Saosuk just stops midair, completely baffled and wondering if a gust of wind caught him. His briefcase is also just hanging there, suspended in the air like some kind of corporate art installation. Turns out Helena is casually holding both him and his belongings aloft with some kind of wind magic. No big deal. She effortlessly catches the briefcase and hands it back, telling him to be a little more careful next time. Saosuk is just speechless, stammering out a thank you as he takes it, his brain trying to process what just happened. He is completely in awe, realizing this quiet neighbor of his is an actual magic user. Helena, now sporting glasses, just gives a quiet confirmation, as if levitating people is a totally normal Tuesday morning activity. Then she suddenly pulls him into a hug, telling him to stay away while he just mumbles about how warm she is, and with a jolt, he snaps back to reality, revealing the whole thing was a dream as Alma stares down at him. Helena is a blushing, sweaty mess, clearly not used to this kind of close contact. Saosuk, still midair in his dream, just looks down at her completely bewildered. She shoves him away with a jolt, looking mortified that she just hugged a neighbor she barely knows. But our boy feels strangely light, wondering what the hell she just did to him. Turns out, she cast a little support magic on him to help with his job, because that is a normal neighborly thing to do. This spell lets him take 2 actions per turn, which he immediately recognizes as some seriously high-level RPG stuff. With a shy little smile, she sends him off, completely unaware she just broke the laws of corporate physics. And with that, he is off to the office, ready to unleash his newfound power on some spreadsheets. This entire department is losing their minds as Saosuk moves at superhuman speed, a blur of productivity. He is so fast he is begging people to talk slower, realizing Helena's magic is basically a cheat code for life. From across the room, one of the other managers watches him and Mizushima with a very unimpressed look. This guy just clicks his tongue, clearly annoyed that someone is actually being efficient around here. Then we see a bracelet on Saosuk's wrist, and just like the ring, it has got a massive crack in it. Back at home, he is explaining to Alma that another asterisk one of her items broke, while she just calmly tells him it is fine. Alma starts pacing, convinced there has to be some underlying cause for all these magical malfunctions. A sly look crosses her face as she realizes his intense dedication to his work might be the key. So she asks to touch his body again for research, and he just stammers if his arm is good enough. Smooth, my dude. A moment later, she slams her hands on the table, having a sudden, dramatic realization. Her eyes go wide as she lets out a gasp, finally connecting all the dots. And of course, the only logical next step is to tackle hug him onto the couch again, because why break tradition? Alma is absolutely losing her mind, completely flustered by the sudden and very intimate contact. Saosuk is right there with her, blushing furiously from the unexpected tackle hug onto the couch. She scrambles to apologize for zoning out, while he just mumbles about how soft she is. Priorities, man. From his perspective, he is just thinking about how substantial this situation is. A true man of culture. Now separated, he is wondering how in the world he is supposed to get any sleep tonight after all that. But Alma's expression shifts, her eyes glowing as she gets into serious artisan analysis mode. She tells him to hold perfectly still for a second. She's got a theory to test. This time she pulls him into a much gentler, more deliberate hug as a magical aura flares around them. Our boy is just completely short-circuiting from the emotional whiplash of it all. And just like that, the Almaring on his finger glows, the crack completely vanishing as it repairs itself. He is still processing that Alma just hugged him again, this time on purpose. She explains her finding: his physical strength is recovering, which is reactivating the ring's functions. Her research apparently involved a book that says hugging reduces stress by a third, which is a choice. Looking at the repaired ring, she exclaims that it feels like the item is actually alive. Her eyes narrow as she puts the final ridiculous pieces of the puzzle together. Her grand conclusion: the ring has learned from his work trauma and is now refusing to heal him to keep him from going back. It is on strike. Realizing what she is doing, she yanks herself away, apologizing for being so forward again. Saosuk meanwhile says he has an idea he wants to try out himself, but Alma beats him to the punch, declaring she will now handle all his meals and baths to support him. He can only stare back, completely baffled by this sudden escalation into full-on domesticity.